with Liz Kohler Brown talking about 70s Nouveau, and we'll talk about what that means. Liz, you do surface pattern design, you teach online, very popular. What has gotten you from point A to point B? When you look back at your style and your growth, like, can you, without me having given you any promptings at all before about these questions, I love that we can just talk like friends. Can you point back to some like things that you look back to a lot in your work or have kind of turned the corner in you understanding your style?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like most people, I think I started out kind of copying what I saw. There were certain styles out there that were popular and I tried those on, just like we try on clothes, try on different outfits and try to see what fits. I was just always drawn to historical patterns more than anything else. I think that I secretly have like an inner old lady because I just love old stuff. And I was raised by my grandparents, and they grew up in the 1920s, so it probably has a little bit to do with it that I just love the
Cool.
look of like old books and old paintings and botanical illustrations. I've always gone to botanicals as my theme, even when I was just working with clay and I never did any drawing. It's always been like my first go-to thing is botanicals, and vintage botanical illustrations is one of the easiest place to find those. So I kind of just got led down that path, I think, just from the reference images that I look at. And now it just seems natural. I'm like, well, I'm going to do a pattern. Got to go find some vintage botanical stuff.
I feel like flowers and botanicals are just such a common theme, but it's not really that.
hmm
I mean, I can get really lost in a plant flower shop. I don't know my way around those things, but they're just great vehicles for color and form. What are some of the other things you like to paint or draw or sketch on your iPad?
Yeah. I think a lot about SEO before I start a pattern collection or I start making a pattern because I want to be sure I'm choosing themes that people are going to search for and people aren't going to find 5 million other patterns like it. So that's why I say, like, I love plants, I love florals, but that can't be all I draw because nobody's going to find me that way. So I always am searching for like weird search terms that, you go to a site and you search and there's only like 5 pages. I'm like, ooh, that's my new search term. So sometimes that's like a trending animal, or lately I've been thinking a lot about quilting. I don't think there's enough patterns about quilting and sewing and, bobbins and scissors and things like that. So I'm always looking for those weird things that haven't been fully covered. Because it's always worth exploring if people haven't fully gone down that avenue yet. Whereas florals, like, I love my florals, but go search florals anywhere and how many thousands of pages do you see? And it's
Yeah.
hard to be like a one person in a sea of florals.
That's so smart. And I recently read an email from you kind of talking about that process. And it kind of blew my mind because I go at it like the opposite direction where I'm like, I feel like doing this, and then I'll figure out and then I'll do my searches. But coming back to the way that you create. So I alluded already to some of the ways that you create. How about you tell us about how do you create? What do you use?
You mean like technology wise
Yeah,
or
the
like process?
tools,
Yeah.
supplies. We can talk about process too, but let's start basic.
So I pretty much do everything on my iPad these days. The only exception would be if I needed to make like a texture or a brush shape, I might paint some like black ink on paper. But usually I'm just starting on the iPad with sketching in Procreate. I do a lot of my like sketching and planning and thinking in Procreate because it has that lifelike feel. It's just so relaxing and fun to work in Procreate. But then for my patterns, I usually need vectors for a lot of the companies I work with. So pretty much finish all my patterns off in vector in Affinity Designer. So A lot of people like making patterns in Procreate. I think that's a legit way to do it too, but I just happen to need vectors for a lot of the stuff I do. And I just like that freedom of being able to scale stuff up to any size that I need. And I've also just kind of loved over the years how it changes my drawings into like a block print look. When you vectorize something, it takes away a lot of the detail and it makes it almost kind of blob like in some areas, which looks like ink kind of running. So I feel like it's given my vector work kind of a block print look, even though it's pure vector. So that's how I get around that. Like, sometimes when you hear vector, you're like, ew, like sleek geometric shapes. I don't like those. But I'm trying to get around that with adding like texture and taking it from Procreate and vectorizing it. So I'm not like building sleek vectors in Affinity. Was that
Well,
TMI?
what I feel like you're teasing at, and it's worth talking about as we're talking about like exploring style, is that actually the way that you create has created or fostered another way of like looking at what comes out of your hands, right? So you like how digitally, your hand movement looks, and then how it kind of translates into that block printing look, which you're like, oh, I like that. So then you keep working in this way. And without meaning to, it's just become your style, like the way you work
Mm-hmm.
is. And so I can relate to that with watercolor just because I feel like I get a lot of credit for the things that the paint really does on its own. And so I think we both can say that. But when you started
Yeah.
out, I'm sure you didn't really feel like you loved what was coming out of your hands necessarily. How do you persevere past that point where you're starting out and you're like, everybody says Procreate so great, and I'm not having any fun. Did you ever feel that?
I always enjoy making stuff. Like everything I make, I enjoy making. And then after I'm done making it, I hate it. It's a weird cycle. I feel like when I look back at past artists who have been like really hated their work and were depressed about their work, I'm like, I can totally relate because even when I'm working on something, I'm like, I'm having so much fun making this, and it's so sad that I'm going to hate you tomorrow. Like, oh, I wish we could just have this moment forever, but we can't because as soon as I'm done making you, you would just be basically another trash design. I don't know why that is. I mean, it's part of like always getting better. Like your eyes getting better, your hands are getting better, so you can see your flaws in your past work.
Mm.
But it's probably also just a personality flaw. We're like, it's good enough, Liz. Like, let it be.
I think of it like same sentiment, but reversed, where when I'm working on it, I'm like, this isn't as great as I thought it was gonna be. But then I come back the next day and I'm like, that's not so bad, and I have the eyes to be able to say, okay, well, maybe if I just did this or that, or later I'll see you in Photoshop and I know what we're gonna do with you. Does it ever work the other way for you? Or just I know I'm gonna
Mm.
hate you?
No, I just always. And I used to think it was when I worked in ceramics, I used to blame ceramics. I was like, well, you put it in the kiln and it comes out and it looks different. So it's the kiln's fault. But it turns out it's my fault. It's always been my fault all along. So whatever, I'm fine with it. I just enjoy making stuff while I'm making it. And then I just, goodbye. You're gone to me and you're out in the world and you can do your own thing. Um, I hope that helps some people feel better because I know a lot of people hate their work. Whenever I talk about hating my work, so many people are like, oh, thank you. I thought I was the only one. And I feel like it's just because I'm bad at making stuff. And I'm like, no, I think it's a thought process. Like we ingrain thought processes in our minds and it's really hard to undo them. Even, you see people who are millionaires who won the lottery and they still live their life as if they had no money. It's like we get these patterns in our minds and we have trouble breaking them. So that's one of my challenges is to love my work. I love you. No, I didn't believe it, but we'll
I know,
try.
I wasn't buying that one, but I know you do at times. I trust you do.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think that the different, what I find different is that you kind of become detached from your work, and not in like a negative way, but just like somehow they go from like infancy to adult overnight for you, and you're just like bye bye, like, and then moving on. And
Hmm.
you know, a lot of times we can get so attached to this. Like, I can think of so many art paintings or designs that I've done that I'm just like, and that's still there sitting in my hard drive. Like, it just kills me. But if I let it go and just wait to see what people are interested in, you get so surprised, and you start to, I don't know, does it make you, watching people react to your work, that letting that catch you off guard? Like, do you take that as data to then create more work, or are you just like, okay, I don't even know what's good anymore, so I guess I'll just keep making art and see what people like in the future?
No, I definitely listen. I listen to
Mm.
sales. I listen to what art licensors say about your work because they're usually pretty good at being super honest and telling you exactly what they think, which I love. And so many good things have come out of that. And just looking at my sales data and realizing, like, okay, people don't like this kind of color range. People seem to like this better and this style better. So yeah, I'm learning. And like you said, like you get to a point where you have to let it go. I can't remember who said this, but it's something like your job is to make more art. Like your job is not to judge whether or not it's good enough, but your job is to just keep making art and putting it out there in the world. So don't make it your job to judge it, make it your job to make it. Whoever knows what that quote is, put it in the comments below so we all know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. That'd be great. Somebody knows.
Yeah.
um, I didn't think that we'd end up talking so much about just kind of like the mindset of creating work, but it's so good because there's a lot that we hear about how to create art, and the people that are teaching it certainly are having fun. But just how do you deal with the stuff that you don't love? Do you still put it out there even if you don't love it? Or do you, I mean, that's, I think, why we want to be able to critique our work, to be able to discern, like, does this have potential? Do I need to keep investing time in it? But it sounds like your process is just so different from mine. I want to hear, like, do you just put it out there no matter what? Or do you make your own cuts at some point?
I definitely have like extra work baked into my process every time. So like if I release a pattern collection that has 15 patterns, there were 25 patterns and 10 of them you'll never see because it didn't work out, you know? So
Mhm.
I just try to bake that into my process where I know that there's going to be some failures and like I'll just let them go when it happens. And then I share the best ones. But like one thing you said is, how do you know if you should keep working on it? That's one of the trickiest things because it's like you could make any piece good if you just keep working on it and working on it. Maybe not with your process because watercolor gets overworked, but like with Procreate, like delete some layers, change something, move this around. Like you can literally work on something forever. But for me, it's like I can feel this flow process when I'm drawing. And it's like, oh, this should go here, that should go there. It feels good. I'm flowing. It's great. If it starts stopping where I'm like, what do I do next? Like, what do I put here? What should that be? That's when I'm feeling like something isn't right about the whole structure of this thing because it
Mm.
just isn't going anywhere. And if it's not fun, like if I'm not enjoying making it, 90% of the time it ends up looking terrible in the end. So I've
Mhm.
learned to kind of trust myself where I'm like, okay, this is not that flow state that feels good. Like this is the things aren't working out state. Just close that and start something else. Like don't obsess over it. I know a lot of artists have like not put work out there because they want to spend their whole life making one piece perfect. And it would be so much better to make 50 subpar pieces and put them out there in the world than to make one perfect thing, you know?
So
It's it's just hard to do emotionally because you're like, I don't want to put something out there that isn't great. On the other hand, if you don't keep producing work, you're never going to find success, even if you put out, 2 wonderful patterns a year. It's not enough. Like, put out 50 okay patterns instead.
Love it. That's so good. I think though, I've said this actually a lot, and I'm gonna need to correct myself about the element of fun that you were talking about. Sometimes what I find to be the thread is not necessarily fun, but it's like that grip. Like, you could be loving this piece, but your grip is so tight, honey, that it's just not, it's gonna flop. Like, and I've done that before, and that would be like the overworking, the just let it go. Like, it's either just let it go. But it's that flow state which is the letting go. It is the let's see what happens here. And you just work away and you find your process and you trust that. So can you tell us a little bit, we're wrapping up here. I'm sad, but we keep these short, about your process. So we've talked a lot about like the tools you use. You start with your collection idea. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go
Yeah.
from there. You start with your collection idea, because that's a
Yeah.
little different than how I do collections, which is really not normal. So I like to hear your process.
Sure. So I pretty much always start with a collection idea and inspiration images, because that just helps me center in on that SEO stuff. Like, I need words. I need like vocabulary that describes what this is going to look like. And that helps me choose what I'm going to draw, the colors, how they're going to be laid out. Like we were talking about, is it going to be flowy? Is it going to be chunky? Like, all those things matter for what I do next, which is the sketching process. So I try to get all that down, like visual images, words, concepts about the collection. Not that I know like the title or anything yet. It's just like a big cloud of words that are trying to make sense. And then I'll just do a ton of sketches, like little motifs, maybe a whole pattern, but super loose. I'm not like working hard on making a sketch. I'm just trying to do like thumbnail images, like, maybe it's like a spool of threads sideways, like, duh, that's it. And sometimes if I don't feel like drawing it out, I'll just write it. But for me, it's important to keep that flow, like to keep it fast and like, okay, sketch this out, put this over here. The more I stall and stop, the more I feel like, I'm not into this. So I spend a lot of time on that phase, just getting like a big cloud of like sketches and words and ideas. And then I just start diving into patterns. And I usually for some reason, I start with the most complex patterns because I love making complex patterns. And then I have to force myself to make those like blender patterns at the end. So I'm like, all right, here's your dots, done. And so I kind of work that way from like most complex to least complex. And then there's like the culling, where I go through and I say, yeah, you don't really fit. You don't really fit. You might be good in my next collection. So let's just put you in a different folder. And then I do some color stuff. And last collection, first time ever, I used the new Illustrator AI color changer thingy. I don't know what it's called. Don't ask me what it's called. It's like a new feature, beta, I think, that you put your pattern in there in vector and you put in a list of vocabulary like 70s funky mushroom hookah bar or something like that. And it comes with a color palette related to that thing. So I had so much fun just like typing words, and the AI would just make me different palettes. And that's how I found the palette for my last collection. So I think that's a new part of my process, because it was just so fun to like work with this little robot guy, and he made my color palette for me. And it was totally different from what I originally thought I wanted. But I'm such a visual person. Like, I like to see it and see it in person rather than try to think like, should it be neon? Should it be muted? So yeah, I may be one of the few artists who's pro AI. Sorry.
I do think so. But I think that, we'll get to a place where we can see its strengths, and it's just too new, too scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think with that fear, it's just, yeah, that lack of knowledge. But if you jump in, you'll probably be less scared.
If you're using it, you'll be like, all right, I like some AI.
All right. Yeah. Liz, you're so great to talk to you. In part, I think, because you teach, right? So you have a membership called the Studio. Tell us about it.
So the studio is for iPad artists and designers who like to make stuff on their iPads and are searching for their style, trying to sell work, trying to kind of innovate their process and change up how they work. We just do new stuff every week and try to inject some excitement into your style and process and make you love it instead of like, ugh, cringy. I don't want to do it. So yeah, you can see all about it on my website.
Awesome. That's lizkohlerbrown.com, and I will put it in the links below. Try your hand at this style with a very lesson targeted to do so. Explore this one and so many others in Watercolor Bold. Try it out for free and learn as much as you can.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.